Welcome to session 2 of the Nano series, where we will learn the 3 transformative leadership steps to scale your business and the tools that help you apply those in your daily life. I was really frustrated with my director of finance. He was a super nice person and fit our values, yet he hit a limit of his skills. No matter how much I gave him tips on how to change his modeling techniques and manage his priorities, he would work too many hours and would not be able to complete the tasks I'd given him, to the point where it's infecting my work. That gave me an aha moment, that one can be aligned emotionally, but not yet be effective. I noticed the distinction between emotions and work product and execution. There must be 2 channels open when we're talking business. One is an emotional channel and one is a business execution channel. Sustainable change is achievable only with the right amount of both emotional intelligence and execution skills. Without EQ, we hit objectives and barriers in ourselves and others, which we call friction. And when this happens, we give up, we disengage, or cause others to do the same. If, on the other hand, we're fortunate enough to have developed EQ, we may have the resilience to process complex demands, but we may still lack the operational skills needed to execute on our growth initiatives. If your leaders are novices in EQ and execution, you should let them go, as your company will fail. If your leaders are strong in EQ, but not in execution, you could suffer inconsistent execution as people are too nice and don't have the skill to keep up with growth. If they're strong in execution and not in EQ, your organization could be running hot, with folks being triggered and triggering each other, leaving you with progress, but without the right leverage to scale fast. We can break EQ and execution down into specific categories. The categories for EQ are self-awareness, self-regulation, internal motivation, empathy, and social skills. The execution categories are in our 9-lens model, which we will cover in future sessions. Let's put the work into motion. In our workbook, we have 2 tools we have provided you. The first is an EQ self-assessment tool. This tool allows you to learn the modern definition of EQ and then self-assess, as well as include other leaders in your own 360 assessment. 2 practical tips in getting the scoring right. The first is, what is mastery? So what deserves a 10 out of 10? Think about a perfectionist winner in your life, or think about in the news, maybe Howard Schultz of Starbucks. Use that as your standard of mastery. Be courageous enough. Whomever you think of has nailed scaling a business, don't be afraid to use that as a 10. Second, in 360 feedback, I've seen this way too often. Horrible leaders around you will only beget terrible feedback to you. If your leaders are weak and limited, your feedback will trap you and you will not see scaling results. Find a leader that you know that is masterful in leadership and execution and share your situation. Allow that person to challenge you about how qualified your team is to set the standard for your grading. The second tool that we provided is a team assessment tool. A 1 through 10 score based on frequency of how often you see your team getting leadership, emotional intelligence, and role mastery right every day. 10 is all the time, 1 is rarely. In this way, you can get a quick sense in your organization who needs help. Doing this every 3 to 6 months as you gain awareness of the blind spots in yourself and your organization will help build you and your leadership team and will be a catalyst. And while you're influencing your team to evolve with you, you'll need a model of communication that takes some practice. So imagine that you want to influence your folks to a new way of thinking. A 2x2 framework can unlock a lot of productivity in that communication. Assume that there is a scale. On one end, you have someone's trust. And on the other hand, you have distance and fear. On another continuum, imagine that whatever you're telling them is within their truth, and imagine that there is something in their blind spot. So you have 2 continuums. You can take action based on this model. If you don't get the scoring right and you're not engaging your folks in the right journey with you, don't proceed further in this workbook. Getting this work right is critical. More and more EQ is required as we scale our companies. The more we are at our learning edge, the more critical it is to have meaningful interactions. And we're processing more and more data at that high scaling point. With this new knowledge of EQ plus execution, you're assured to be more effective in handling all of your people interactions. Please use these techniques and get going.